Let's welcome IGN's own Rory Powers, Tim Willits from id Software, and Magnus Netfors from Avalanche to show off Rage 2. Guys, Rage 2, tell us about it, please.
Yes, it's a great collaboration between id Software first-person shooting and the masters of open world chaos.
That's chocolate and peanut butter right there. That is.
Yeah, that's a really good way to word it, actually. Yeah.
So obviously Avalanche has a ton of experience with the open world gameplay and vehicles and stuff, and then it invented the first-person shooter, no big deal. How did this collaboration come about?
So we've always admired the guys at Avalanche, and when the right opportunity came, they were done with their game, we were done with our game. It was like love at first sight, and we thought, let's do this together. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just good timing, as we have at Avalanche has always been fan of the id shooters. Like, we have good experience with open world, and as Tim said, just marrying those two into a new thing, I think we have the opportunity to create something that people haven't seen before. So.
Yeah, it's so great, because one of the things that came to my mind when I was playing the 2016 Doom is just that pushing combat that you have through all those hallways and alleyways. I just wonder what that would be like in a bigger, more exploring world setting. So it's cool to see this actually coming to life.
Yes, and it's playable at E3. So make sure you come on down and play it. But yes, we learned a lot in the last few years at id Software, and we brought that intensity, and that action to a true open world environment.
Now, I've got to ask, what's the story with the lore here? Because the first Rage was great, but it came out, like 8 years ago? It's been a minute.
Yeah, a little while. So this place is continuing on from the first game. So this takes place roughly 30 years ago after the first game. So it's based on the same world. Some of the characters are still even around. And it's a new world, though, because it has changed. At the end of the last game, we kind of filled in the story with, you remember the end where the arcs popped up from the ground. We also said that let's bring some life from space. So we had a thing that we called ecopods that lands and fertilize the ground. So now we turn the classical brown wasteland into a green wasteland, a lot of different biomes and the greenery around and so on.
Is this something that you would recommend people to play the original first, or do you think they can just step in on Rage 2?
So yes, it's great to play Rage 1, but don't be afraid that it has a big 2 at the end. We'll take care of everything for you. This is a new game, a new experience. It's built on a franchise, but you did not need to play the first Rage to have a great time.
Cool.
No, I agree. Just fall in there and have fun.
Now, in the demo you did yesterday at the big Bethesda showcase, there was a line in there that I loved, which was, if you can see it, you can drive it. Tell us a little bit about the vehicle variety.
Well, it's a Avalanche game. We love vehicles in our games. Like, first Rage had vehicle combat in a good way, so we wanted to push that further and have a great time. So vehicle combat is a big part of it. The wasteland is full of different types of vehicles, and as we said, if you see it, you can drive it. So that's kind of always our philosophy. Like, see it, go there, do it, poke it, and the world will react to your actions, and the same with the vehicle combat.
Has any of the experience gained from the Mad Max game been brought into this title?
Well, you bring experience from all the games you have done in the previously, right? So, like me as a game developer, I have done a bunch of different games, and I learned from all of them. It has brought all their games and their knowledge that they have in their studio, so we have collaborated from day one around, so it's all previous id and Avalanche games, the experience of all of those combined is what we see now.
Yeah, that's great, because that Mad Max cars, they were heavy, dirty cars. There's a really good feel to them, clashing up against each other. So if that comes to Rage 2, that'll be great.
Yeah, and it's even taken further because there's so much more guns around now. We have bigger guns and more explosions and just more.
These are all the words I like to hear. Yeah. This is great. I'm just taking off on this. Bigger guns, more explosions. Love it.
And you've added some sort of super abilities too. Can you talk a little bit about that whole system?
Yeah. So in the original Rage, we had nanotrites, which kind of helped you regain health when you were damaged. So we've expanded that to apply that to your combat. So we have Shatter and Pound, and we have Dash, and all these techniques and abilities that allow a much more dynamic, fast-paced, in-your-face action.
All right. Now, a lot of people I saw online are wondering if John Goodman's going to be back, because he was a voice in the first game. Are you talking about the voice cast at all?
Well, not really. I mean, John Goodman, he was Dan Hagar in the first one. Unfortunately, Dan did not survive 30 years. He will not be back. But we have a lot of great, over-the-top, colorful characters.
Cool. And can you talk a bit about the protagonist, who is a ranger, not of Texas, but still named Walker?
Indeed. So he's a guy who started out in a place called Vineland. He's brought up there as a kid, and it's kind of like a place that has isolated him a little bit from the rest of the world. In the beginning of the game, all of that is destroyed. So you kind of like you are the last surviving ranger. You will kind of need to go out in the open world and find the reasons why the authority now is back, and you have to defeat them.
So one of the things that we did with Walker, which is unusual for id Software games, is we gave him a voice,
Right.
which helps build a context if you have not played Rage 1. You know, Walker will fill you in on things that he's thinking and things of the world to help kind of propel that story.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people have pointed out that the kind of presentation has been very like over the top, very kind of nutty. You've got Andrew WK out there, a lot of colors, a lot of fun, but there still is like a very serious. It's a serious setting. It's grimy. It's a dystopia. How do you find that balance between colorful humor and a horrifying wasteland?
So yes, it's supposed to be fun. We're making video games, and one of the things that Magnus and I set out to do was, make it more crazy than Rage. So we took everything, up, and I think we have a good balance between fun and seriousness, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's colorful. That was one of the things that was set out from the beginning. It needs to be a lot of colors in the game. It needs to have all the attitude that was around in the first game. Like many people think of the first game as mostly dark and so on, but they had a lot of exaggerated sequence. Like my favorite is Mutant Bash TV, and we will bring that back. That is crazy and over the top. So that's one idea, and just building on that and pushing everything further in the craziness.
Yeah, because one of the cool things, at least from my experience with Avalanche games like Just Cause, is having fun and exploring with your abilities and what you can do with them. Like obviously for Just Cause, it was the rocket mines, sticking them to the side of a goat and launching them into outer space and things like that. Is there room for that in this game? Because we see in the trailer at one point this kind of anti-gravity mine launch someone up in the air, and then the wing stick hits them and they go flying. Does that play into it at all?
All of that is like what we like to do. Like we love the dynamic content and dynamic abilities, and just let the player toy with the tools. So we build most of our content in the game world is dynamic, and just let the player have fun with it, and they can invent, and they can wonder if I do exactly what you like. That was not something that we told the players. You can combine these mines with the goat.
Yeah.
The players, they learned that pretty
That was
quickly.
a lot of what I did in that game. It was mostly I didn't really do the story. It was just goats, just seeing how far I could shoot them.
And we do the same thing here, right? Like we provide a lot of toys, as the nanotrite abilities, for example, that you saw and you mentioned and so on, and that will allow you to combine those with everything you see in the world. And just
I say that it has a high distraction factor.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. That's good. That's a good way to word it. Yeah.
Now, in addition to sort of the more colorful palette, there's also seems to be a lot of like colored smoke. Does that have any kind of a gameplay mechanic to it?
Well, I mean, we do use color to help identify areas, and there's certain kind of things that you do in the world that color is definitely important. But it just adds to that atmosphere. It adds to the over-the-top excitement, the colors. We really wanted to do something different. We wanted to set this game apart from other open-world shooters.
Yeah, like we use color to identify the different factions that exist and so on as well. So the one that you have seen so far is called the Goon Squad, and they love they're mostly pink and blue and all those colors.
And the Mohawks as well.
The
Big into the
Mohawks,
Mohawks.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's their style. Other factions in the game will have different identification types, but it helps the player to know if I see a location far away, I can immediately identify, oh, it's these guys and so on. So it helps the world to communicate what's going on in the world to the player.
Sweet. Now, you stressed that there are different biomes. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of variety of landscape we're going to see?
Yeah, well, it's everything from the classical brown, like
And we do id Software did brown really well.
Signature brown.
Yes.
all
the colors in brown. Yes.
Exactly, it was perfectly. So we kept that because it was so beautiful. And then we wanted to add more to it. It's like we have swamps, we have jungles, we have more grasslands, and everything. Also, it's not only look, it's the feel of it, and it actually affects the gameplay in a different way. You can just imagine of the difference of having combat in a dense jungle compared to an open grassland. Like it's really, really different depending on how the environment is.
And we like to say that it is actually a post-apocalyptic game. It's what happens after the wasteland.
After there's two
After there's, we are rebuild. The world is rebuilding, and it is growing and is changing, and this look is different than just a desert.
Okay.
Did you have anything else, Rory?
Yeah, I was really interested into figuring out how the what is the name of the ultimate? The Overdrive?
Yeah.
The Overdrive Effect. How frequently is that going to come up? Is this something that you would save for, boss fights and things like that, the bigger enemies we've seen?
It's a thing we want to use the player as often as they can, because it's actually a little mini loop inside of the combat. It's like the better you play, the more crazy you play, the faster you will regain the power to use that. So, advanced players, they can almost have it constantly on, but it's impossible to have it exactly. But you can really chain it up to be like our lead designer, combat designer. He's crazy when you see him play, and it's like overdrive, play, overdrive,
just
play,
non-stop
Yeah, it's like-
overdrive. Yeah.
And that was one of the things that the team really learned from Doom 2016, where the team created the push forward combat that rewarded you to get into glory kill. So we have this fast-paced combat in this big world, and you run into a situation where combat can be really far away. So we use these things to help kind of incentivize players to get into the action.
Yeah, well, that's especially because I played a lot of Doom 2016, and that was a huge part of it for me, was that, when you got in the flow of combat, it was just this non-stop momentum,
Yes.
even on the online multiplayer, and it just felt great, doing the slides with the shotgun, getting close quarters.
Well, it looks like a lot of fun. Rage 2 is definitely it looks like probably the loudest game this fall. So,
All right.
good stuff.
Good.